wool, diving in for cheese. God can't take a joke, hungry fox horse balls. Thank God it wasn't peach.
Hey, so I wanted to apologize for dropping off the face of the earth for like a year, but 2020 was pretty rough on all of us, and now that things are less hellishly unpredictable, I'd like to try maybe actually making videos again. Also, while my previous two videos were related to Dungeons and Dragons, going forward, I'm gonna try to focus on more system-agnostic videos. Anyway, let's get to it. I wanted to make this video about incorporating elements from folklore into your RPG sessions. I'm kind of an amateur, sometimes folklorist. When I was a kid, my parents would buy me these books that were just all huge anthologies of different myths and folktales from different cultures. And I read like crazy as a kid, so I kinda got sucked in. You're probably already aware that most modern fantasy tropes are derived from Tolkien. You might also be aware that Tolkien took much of his inspiration from mythology, mostly Norse, but there's bits and pieces of other European folklore sprinkled in. I'm not saying you should never get ideas from more recent works, but Tolkien was probably onto something here. Especially once you get away from the stories everyone knows, there's so much weird shit that's just forgotten. Folklore is fucking weird and wild. It's full of random violence, bad decisions, and plot contrivances that often feel like they're pulled out of someone's ass. It's full of protagonists who do really morally sketchy things, but we're supposed to root for them because designated hero, I guess? Oh, and a lot of ogres, a lot of magic items, and for some reason the devil. Often, the heroes are only really able to succeed through sheer dumb luck and circumstance, or because they got creative. Sometimes they're able to avoid combat through trickery or clever use of magic items, and sometimes they get eaten. If this is starting to sound familiar, it's because all of these are also important to tabletop. And arguably, it probably had the same energy, at least back in old-timey days when there was literally no other form of entertainment. People would tell each other stories, and they would change things from whatever source they used, or embellish stuff, or have to come up with shit on the fly to better please their audience. As I'm sure you've noticed, this is all stuff DMs have to do on the regular. And to get a good look at the building blocks of folklore, we need a guide. Specifically, we need the Arne Thompson Uther Classification Index for Folktales. I'll spare you the history of the ATU index, but to make this very short, the Arne Thompson Uther classification system is basically TV tropes for academia, but specifically only used for myths and folktales. I might do a video going over the index later. There's currently 7 broad categories of folktales. Each category has some subcategories, and sometimes those subcategories have even further subcategories. And under each subcategory, you've got the full list of story archetypes for that specific thing. Some of these get weirdly specific, and I mean really weirdly specific, oh boy.
Ah, yes, my favorite story. Little Ant finds a penny, buys new clothes with it, and sits in her doorway.
So I'm currently at the subcategory in the anecdote section that's just called The Stupid Man. If I want to look at ATU 1682, I'll get stories about a guy who teaches his horse to live without food.
Spoiler alert, the horse dies.
In the subcategory for religious tales called God Rewards and Punishes, we've also got... okay, this section is mostly boring. Except for ATU 762, the woman who spontaneously pops up 365 babies? Like, what? Maybe you should put this in your campaign. Okay, why am I saying maybe? Please don't put this in your campaign, but I thought it was fucking wild. Anyway, I put a link to the folklore database with the ATU index in the doobly-doo. I will caution that this database was taken down in December of 2019, and only very recently seems to have come back, so it might get taken down again, who knows. If you really want to get a full copy of the index, I couldn't find anywhere you could get an ebook of it legally, and the physical versions are all kind of hard to get a hold of and cost hundreds of dollars. You can't even, you know. Also, only university libraries seem to have copies for people to look at, and none of them are digitized. Sorry! Yeah, this sucks. Let's look at one of my favorite archetypes, ATU 780, or the Singing Bone. It's technically under the religious tales category, but it isn't specific to any one religion. It does, however, have some strong undertones of divine intervention and whatever a soul or the afterlife even is, so I guess it fits. Here's how it goes. There's two siblings. I found that they're pretty much always the same gender in these stories, but it really doesn't matter. They both want to marry the same person, who's usually some sort of royalty or nobility. Both of the siblings compete for this person's hand, either through actually courting them or some weird engagement challenge quest. Either way, the younger sibling is the one who's loved more in the first case or who completes the challenge in the second. The older sibling is jealous and then straight up murders their own blood. Then they hide the body and go home. Sometime later, their bones are made into some type of musical instrument, don't ask, and some bard thinks this shit is the coolest thing ever and goes around traveling with it and playing music and stuff. But the instrument is cursed. It can sing by itself, and the only songs it ever plays are all about how they were brutally murdered. Eventually, the right people hear the song and the murderer is punished. Sometimes this happens at the wedding, but in other stories it's years and years later. And the person who got murdered, they never come back, but their soul is finally able to rest in peace now that the truth has been brought to light and their murderer brought to justice. It's a tale as old as time, and unsurprisingly, stories with this basic format are found all over the world. Sure, you get some variations, like there being no marriage plot or them not being actually related, but the murder and weird bone instrument are a constant. I was able to find versions from Britain, Germany, Mexico, India, Japan, Russia, and Egypt. Hell, the versions you find in this part of the world are actually in song form. I'll put some links to different versions in the doobly-doo. Now, let's look at how you can use this archetype in your campaign. Let's say your party has a bard. You can give them a musical instrument made of someone's bones. I mean, fuck, that sounds exactly like the kind of shit that would be in a dungeon as treasure. So then your bard dusts the instrument off, gives it a play, and gets a creepy-ass melody as a weird, discordant voice sings about how they were murdered by their jealous sibling. How long ago this happened is up to you. Maybe the instrument is haunted by the spirit of the murdered sibling. Or if you want to go the religious route, maybe it's not, but it's a divine omen that was created by a god of justice. It could be like that one SCP that's a Tupac CD that just goes on about murders and stuff. If it's fairly recent, your party can learn about a wedding that they should probably crash, and your bard has the opportunity for some really cool roleplay. If it's years in the past, your bard still has the opportunity for some really cool roleplay, but there's probably significant political and social fallout once some nobles' old misdeeds have come to light. If another party member is part of the nobility, this is a great way to involve their backstory as well. Either way, now you've got a shiny new side quest. You can start by actually just binging on whatever compilation of folktales you want if that's your style. There's all sorts of ebooks that are available for free, but I recommend going through the ATU index, seeing what tropes best fit the needs of your campaign, and starting your binge from there. The most relevant sections for DMs are probably going to be tales of magic and realistic tales, but don't feel like you have to stay in those sections. Here are some tropes to get you started in no particular order. 305, Dragon Blood as a Cure. 2036, Drop of Honey Causes Chain of Accidents. 678, The King Transfers His Soul to a Parrot. 992, A Cuckolded Husband Makes His Adulterous Wife Eat Her Lover's Heart. 322,
Magnet Mountain attracts everything.
1886, Man Drinks from His Own Skull. 316, Firstborn is promised to a mermaid/water spirit in a pond. 1119, Heroes trick ogres or some other kind of monster into murdering their own children. 990, Revived from apparent death by a grave robber. 622, King has talking bed legs that warn him about stuff. 363, Woman's new husband turns out to be a ghoul/vampire/other undead cannibal thing. You know, normal stuff. I don't really have a graceful means of ending this video, but please engage with this content however you'd like, whether that's by liking or subscribing or faxing someone this video somehow. I don't know. I've also got a Patreon set up as I'd like to be able to raise the production quality of these videos and maybe also buy myself some more potatoes. That's all I've got for now, but I'll definitely be back here again this month with a couple more videos. Thanks, guys! The ass tries to caress his